Welcome to Payroll Setup Lesson number 11 on setting up benefits in the Benefits tab. As you can see, I'm on the main Payroll Center screen and I've opened up the Benefits tab. And what we're going to do is set up some benefits at the right side of the screen here. When you click the New button, it clears the right side, getting you ready to set up a new benefit. So as you press Enter through these fields, this is where you can set up your benefit, just by pressing Enter through these fields. What I'm going to do is double click on an existing one and press Enter through the fields. Obviously, if a benefit is active, then it means that you do want it calculated in the payroll. So at any time when a benefit becomes inactive, all you have to do is take the check mark out and resave the benefit. Now, taxable. We ask you at this point because depending on what you answer here, you will be limited to the calculation methods in this drop down that you can select. Now, most of the time benefits are not taxed because, as you know, benefits are paid by the employer on behalf of the employee. So in most cases the employer doesn't want to or shouldn't have to pay the tax on the benefits. That may be different in some states and in some cases, but by and large most benefits are not taxable. Now we also have the must attach to pay rate checkbox available here as well. You could actually have a benefit that you only want calculated on, say, active field time or active work time rather than, say, vacation pay or holiday pay, things of that nature. And in terms of union benefits, although we like to see those set up in the Employer Liabilities tab, but the idea is the same, that any benefit can be specific to the actual pay rates that they're meant to be calculated against. So most of the time I do not see that on benefits. I do not see this checked. The description of the benefit can be entered in the description field, and when I press Enter, I'm brought down to the S name, which again is a short name for the benefit that shows up on check stubs and other reports. As I press Enter, I'm brought down to the annual amount field. So if there's a limit, an annual limit to how much of this benefit can be calculated, that annual amount can be placed here as well. Just like employer liabilities, benefits need to be attached to both the liability account in the general ledger and also to the related expense account in the general ledger by selecting them from these drop downs. Now, if the benefit is a retirement plan match, you may want it to show up on the W-2s, so you can select from this drop down where you want that to show up. So it could be under retirement plan, or if you don't want it to show up on the W-2s at all, you can select this option, which is the last one on the list. Now, just like deductions, you can tell COBRA how often you want this benefit to occur. So if it's every run or specific weeks, you select that here. If you have selected specific weeks, you can tell it which weeks of the month. This should correlate to the deduction too, if the benefit and the deduction are directly related to each other. I'm going to set this back to every run. Now, the calculation method, just like deductions and employer liabilities, you need to tell COBRA how to calculate this benefit. So if you have not checked that this is taxable, then only the benefit, or rather the calculation methods in this drop down that start with non-taxable will be available to you. And vice versa. If you have selected that this is a taxable benefit, only the calculation methods that start with the word taxable will be available to you or accepted when you save this benefit. So let's go through some of these, because some of these are kind of tricky depending on the type of benefit that you're setting up. If the benefit is a non-taxable amount times hours paid, that means that for every hour paid, you're going to multiply that hour paid by a certain dollar amount. Now, hours paid and hours worked are very similar. They work very similarly, but hours worked represents clock hours rather than straight time, overtime, and double time hours. So, unlike hours paid, which does calculate everything by hours paid, in other words, expanded out, straight time hours, overtime hours, double time hours. Well, hours worked just represents clock hours. He worked 10 hours today, and we don't care how many of them were overtime or double time. Non-taxable deduction based. Okay, this is where we start relating the deduction to the benefit itself. So in this case, if you're doing a 401k match, the employer is, and you're setting it up as a match, but that match is related to the deduction itself, this is how you can tell the program that. And then later on, as you'll see, we'll be actually relating the deduction to the benefit in the Deductions tab over here at the upper right. So again, this means that the benefit is directly related to the deduction that it's going to be calculated against. Non-taxable fixed. All that means is that this is just a fixed amount every time that the benefit is calculated in every pay run. So it doesn't change. Non-taxable pay-based means that it is a percentage of their pay. So you'll see what by being either fixed amount or a pay-based is going to be important in just a moment. And then we can have a pay-based percentage that is also related to the deduction. So if you say that you're going to pay or match 3% of the deduction, not to exceed the deduction amount, this is the one that you would want to select. So again, depending on the type of benefit match that you're doing, if it's a match or if it's just a standalone benefit, these calculation methods tell COBRA how to treat the benefit calculation. You have the same set of taxable calculation methods as well too. They work the same way, only these ones would be taxable. So hopefully you have an idea of what you might want to select. So if I say it's just pay-based, then what I want to do is hit enter, and when I go down to the rate field, because I've selected one of the pay-based ones, be it the non-taxable pay-based less than or equal to the deduction, or these two taxable ones, that means that we're going to use a rate. So we're going to put in the rate field the rate at which the benefit should be calculated. In this case, we've entered 3% as 0.03. You could enter 10% as 0.10, that kind of thing. Because as you're learning, throughout the entire suite of programs, all percentages are entered as decimals. Now, kind of the opposite, if we had selected one of these that say fixed or amount here, then we would use, instead of the rate field, we would use the amount field, because this means so much an hour or just a fixed amount every time the benefit is calculated. So you're going to use one or the other of these fields depending on your calculation method. Now, just like anything else in the program, you can relate this benefit to the AP vendor to whom you pay it. So that can be done now, or it can be done later. You can resave this record later on after you have your accounts payable set up. And if you are using the benefits tab to set up your union benefits, which we don't recommend, you can relate your benefits to the actual union codes that they're meant to be related to. So, the only other thing about benefits is when you have selected any of these calculation methods that have the word deduction in it, okay, then what you can do is relate the benefit to the particular deduction that you're relating it to. So in the case of 401ks, let's say you're doing a 401k match, but it's related to the 401k deduction. or deductions. What you can do is select all the deductions that this match is related to by check marking them on the left and adding them into the box at the right. Okay. Conversely, you can remove them out of the box at the right by putting a check mark and clicking the remove button. So you only need to do that again if your method says the word deduction somewhere in it. So I'm going to save this, and that ends the lesson on setting up benefits.